The Night of the Flickering Light. Hello there, my little listener. Come closer. I have a story to tell you. A story about a very special knight and his even more special friend. It's a story that happened not so long ago, in a place you might have visited in your dreams. It's the story of the night the world went quiet and dark, and how two small lights found the courage to save it. Our story begins in the cheerful, sunny kingdom of Gleam. Now, Gleam was a wonderful place where everything was designed to be bright and shiny. The rivers bubbled like liquid silver. The flowers had petals that glittered like jewels, and even the cobblestones on the paths had a gentle, polished glow. And in this kingdom lived a knight. His name was Sir Glimmer. Sir Glimmer had a suit of armor that was the shiniest of all. When the sun was out, he sparkled so brilliantly that you could see him from the very top of the tallest tower. He loved the daytime, for he felt brave and important and seen. But Sir Glimmer had a secret that made his heart feel heavy. You see, his beautiful, shiny armor had a peculiar problem. It didn't work in the dark. The moment the sun dipped below the hills and the moon took its place in the sky, Sir Glimmer's armor would become as dull and gray as a forgotten pot. It wouldn't shine. It wouldn't gleam. It wouldn't even catch a single twinkle from the stars. This made Sir Glimmer very sad. While other knights would patrol under the starlight, their armor glinting bravely, Sir Glimmer would have to stay inside his castle, feeling not very much like a knight at all. He felt that to be a true knight, you had to shine all the time. Sir Glimmer's very best friend in the whole world was a little firefly named Sparkz. Now, Sparkz had a light of his own, a cute, fuzzy little lantern on his bottom. But Sparks's light had a problem too. It flickered. It didn't burn with a steady, strong beam. It would go blink, 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 and then sometimes fade to a soft glow, and other times it would pop with a bright, cheerful flash. Sparkz didn't mind so much. He thought his flickering light was rather fun, like a little game of peekaboo. But he knew it made his big friend, the knight, a little nervous. How could such a tiny, unreliable light ever be of any real help? One evening, something very strange and very scary happened. Sir Glimmer was sitting by his window, watching his armor slowly lose its shine as the sun set, as it always did. He sighed. But then, he noticed something else. The moon, usually a great glowing pearl in the sky, looked different. It looked dim. It wasn't its bright, cheerful self. It seemed pale and sleepy. Sir Glimmer leaned closer to the window, his heart starting to beat a little faster. Minute by minute, the moon grew fainter and fainter until it went out completely. It didn't disappear, no. It was still there, a pale gray circle in the sky, like a stone. But its light was gone, and without the moon's light, something even more terrible began to happen. All across the kingdom of Gleam, the other lights began to fail. The stars, one by one, winked out like snuffed candles. The glowing flowers closed up, their light fading. The silver rivers became dark and still. The world was plunged into a deep, deep darkness. A darkness so thick and so quiet, you could almost feel it. It was a darkness that had forgotten about light. Down in the garden, Sparkz felt a jolt of fear. His own little light flickered wildly. Blink, 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 blink. The only tiny speck in a huge sea of black. He zipped up as fast as his little wings could carry him, flying straight to Sir Glimmer's castle window. He found the knight standing very still, his armor now completely invisible in the overwhelming dark. Sir Glimmer confessed to his friend that he was terribly frightened. This was the kind of dark his armor was useless in. This was the kind of dark that felt unknightly. But just as the fear was about to swallow them both whole, they heard a soft, whispering sound. It was the wise old oak tree at the edge of the kingdom, its leaves rustling with an ancient message. The tree told them that this had happened once before, long, long ago. The moon had simply forgotten how to shine. It had gotten so used to its job that it had fallen asleep and forgotten the magic of its own light. The tree whispered that the only thing that could remind the moon was the sound of the Giggle-Glow. The Giggle-Glow! Sir Glimmer had heard stories, legends from when he was a tiny knight in training. It was said to be a magical flower, hidden deep, deep within the whispering woods. And it was called the Giggle-Glow because its petals held the very first laugh ever laughed, and its light was the pure, joyful light of happiness itself. If they could find the Giggle-Glow and bring its sound and its light back into the world, maybe, just maybe, the moon would remember how to shine. Sir Glimmer took a deep breath. He was scared. His armor was dull. He couldn't see his own hand in front of his face. But he was a knight, and the kingdom needed help. Sparkz buzzed bravely next to him, his light doing its best to flicker encouragingly. Sir Glimmer made a decision. He would go, and Sparkz would be his guide. They would find the Giggle-Glow. They had to. So the knight and the firefly set off into the deepest, darkest dark anyone had ever known. Sparkz flew ahead, his little body the only point of light in the entire world. Blink, 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 blink. It wasn't much, but it was something. Sir Glimmer followed the sound of Sparksz's wings and the tiny, flickering beacon, his dull armor making soft, clanking noises as he walked. Can you imagine how brave they were? To step into such darkness with only a flicker to lead the way? Their journey led them to the edge of the Whispering Woods. Now these woods were called Whispering for a reason. Even on a bright day, the wind through the leaves sounded like secret voices. But in this total darkness, the whispers felt different. They felt closer. Sir Glimmer gripped the hilt of his sword, though he couldn't see it. Sparks's light flickered a little faster. This was their first big challenge. The path through the woods was tangled and tricky. Twisty roots seemed to reach up from the ground to trip Sir Glimmer. Low-hanging branches swooped down to brush against his helmet. And the whispers, oh, the whispers. They weren't friendly whispers. They were doubts, dressed up as words. The wind seemed to sigh things like, "You're not shiny enough," and a real knight would have a brighter light, and you'll never find it. You'll be lost forever in the dark. Sir Glimmer's steps began to slow. The whispers were saying all the things he already feared about himself. He felt like turning back. This was too hard. But just then, Sparks's light, which had faded to a worried dim glow, suddenly gave a determined, bright pop. It was as if the little firefly was saying, "Don't you listen to them. I'm here with you." That little pop of light gave Sir Glimmer a burst of courage. He straightened his shoulders. He was a knight, and knights protect their friends. He had to be brave for Sparkz. He kept walking, one foot in front of the other, following the brave flicker of his friend. They were moving forward, even though their light was small. What would you do if you heard scary whispers in the dark? Would you be brave like Sir Glimmer and Sparkz? Finally, after what felt like forever, the whispering faded behind them. They had passed the first test, but the woods were still pitch black, and our friends were getting very tired. Just as Sir Glimmer was about to suggest they rest, the ground beneath his feet changed. It became soft and squelchy. A cold dampness rose up around his boots. Sparkz zipped down and his light revealed a terrifying sight. They had walked right into the Gurgling Bog, a vast, muddy swamp they needed to cross. This was challenge number 2. The bog was full of hidden, deep holes and sticky mud that sucked at Sir Glimmer's boots. Every step was a struggle. And the bog made noises too. Wet, glugging, bubbling noises that sounded like hungry gulps. Sparkz flew low, trying to light up the path, but his flickering light made it difficult. One moment, a path would look clear. The next moment, in the dimness, Sir Glimmer would step into a deep patch and sink up to his knee. It was slow and cold and scary. Then the worst happened. Sir Glimmer took a step into what he thought was a shallow puddle, but it was a deep, deep hole. He sank down, 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 until the cold, muddy water was up to his chest. He was stuck. He couldn't move his legs. He tried to pull himself out, but the mud held him tight. Sparkz flew around his head in a panic. His light blinking so fast was like a tiny alarm. Sir Glimmer felt a surge of panic. This was it. They would never get out. The darkness and the mud would win. But then he remembered something. Knights don't just have shiny armor. They have clever minds. He stopped struggling. He forced himself to be still and think. He told Sparkz not to panic. He asked Sparkz to do something very important. He asked the little firefly to fly high as he could, and make his light as bright as possible. And then, hold it steady, just for a moment. Sparkz took a deep breath. He flew up, high above the bog. He concentrated with all his might. He thought of happy things, sunny days, and sweet flower nectar, and his best friend the night. And then something amazing happened. Sparkz's light stopped flickering. It burned, steady and strong and bright. A beautiful, constant golden beam cutting through the blackness. And in that strong, steady light, Sir Glimmer could see. He could see a thick, fallen branch just within reach. He stretched out his arm, grabbed the branch, and, with a mighty heave, he pulled himself out of the muddy hole. Shloop! He was free. Sparkz zipped back down, his light returning to its cheerful flicker, as if tired from the effort of being so steady. Sir Glimmer patted his friend gently on the head, thanking him for being so brilliant. They had used their brains and worked together. They carefully picked their way across the rest of the bog, helping each other until their feet found solid, dry ground on the other side. They had beaten the second challenge. They were deep in the heart of the Whispering Woods now. The air felt different here, older and magical. And up ahead, they saw a soft, pulsing blue light. Their hearts leaped. Was that it? Was that the Giggle-Glow? They hurried forward, following the light. But little did they know, their third and final challenge was waiting for them. The blue light was coming from a beautiful, silent clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a magnificent flower with silvery blue petals that pulsed with a soft light. It was lovely, but it was completely quiet. This wasn't the Giggle-Glow. This was its opposite, the sigh blossom, a flower that absorbed all sound and happiness and left only quiet sadness. As they stepped into the clearing, a wave of stillness washed over them. Sir Glimmer felt all his energy drain away. Sparkz's light flickered weakly. They felt like sitting down and giving up. Why bother? The world was dark and sad. A single shiny tear rolled down Sir Glimmer's cheek inside his helmet. This was the worst challenge yet. It wasn't scary whispers or sticky mud. It was a sadness that made you not want to try anymore. The sigh blossom was making them forget why they had come. It was making them forget about hope. Sir Glimmer looked at Sparkz, whose light was now just a faint ember. He looked down at his own dull gray dull gray armor. He felt like a failure. But as he looked at his friend, he remembered their journey. He remembered Sparkz's brave flicker in the Whispering Woods. He remembered the steady beam that saved him in the bog. That little light had never given up, and neither would he. He had an idea. A crazy, silly, knightly idea. Bravery wasn't about not being afraid. It was about doing the right thing even when you were afraid. And sometimes, the right thing was to be silly in the face of sadness. He stood up as tall as he could in his dull armor. He looked at the sad, sighing flower, and he began to do something he hadn't done in a long, long time. He began to dance. It was a clunky, clumsy dance. His armor squeaked and rattled. It was not a graceful dance. It was a funny dance. Sparkz looked up, confused. What was his friend doing? But seeing the big, clanky knight dancing so awkwardly it was hilarious. A tiny giggle escaped Sparkz, then another. Soon, the little firefly was shaking with laughter, zipping around in little loop-the-loops, his light flickering with joy. The knight's dance got even sillier. He did a jig. He wiggled his arms. The sounds of their laughter, the knight's deep rumbling chuckle, and the firefly's high tinkling giggles began to fill the silent clearing. The more they laughed, the more the heavy, sad feeling lifted. And then the most magical thing happened. Right next to the blue sky blossom, another flower began to grow. It pushed up through the soil, its stem of vibrant green, its petals unfolding like a swirling rainbow. And with each burst of laughter from Sir Glimmer and Sparkz, the new flower grew brighter and brighter. This flower was radiating a warm golden light that pushed back the darkness. This was the Giggle-Glow. It had been hidden, waiting for the sound of true, joyful laughter to wake it up. The flower began to pulse in time with their laughter, and a sound came from it, the most beautiful sound in the world. The sound of pure, happy giggles. The very first laugh, ringing through the woods. The Giggle-Glow's light shot up, a beam of pure joy, straight up through the trees, into the sky, and right up to the pale gray moon. The beam of light and laughter hit the moon, and the moon shivered. Then it glowed. Just a little at first, a soft silver, then brighter and brighter and brighter still. It remembered how to shine. The moon burst into light, a glorious, brilliant, shining pearl in the sky, washing the world in a beautiful, silvery glow. Back in the kingdom of Gleam, people gasped as the darkness vanished. The stars twinkled back to life. The flowers opened their petals, glowing again. The rivers bubbled with silver light. The world was bright once more. And in the clearing, Sir Glimmer looked down at himself. In the glorious light of the moon and the Giggle-Glow, his armor was shining. It was shining brighter than it ever had in the sun. It gleamed and glimmered and sparkled, reflecting the moonbeams and the joyful light of the magical flower. He realized his armor had always been able to shine in the dark. It just needed a true light to reflect. He didn't need to make his own light. He just needed to be brave enough to stand in the light of his friends and reflect it for all the world to see. He and Sparkz sat together in the clearing, basking in the light and the giggles. They had done it. They hadn't been the biggest or the brightest or the shiniest, but they had been the bravest because they had kept going even when they were scared, and their light was small. Sparkz landed on Sir Glimmer's shining shoulder, his own light flickering contentedly, a perfect, happy little blink against the knight's brilliant armor. And from that day on, Sir Glimmer was known as the Knight of the Flickering Light, the bravest knight in all the land, who was never afraid of the dark again. He and Sparkz had many more adventures, but that, my little friend, is a story for another night. A story about the time the stars decided to have a dance party and needed a knight and a firefly to provide the music. But that's a tale for next time. Sleep tight, and remember, even the smallest light can shine bravely in the dark. Moral: true bravery is not the absence of fear, but the choice to move forward with courage and friendship, even when you feel small and afraid.